Hey everyone, Jason Sherman here. In today's episode of Zero to CEO, we're going to talk about implementing sustainable packaging strategies with Elizabeth Corbett. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Awesome. And so, one of the things I saw on your website was so many different types of packaging. And, I want to kind of go behind the scenes a little bit.
hmm
And I want to see, like, I always like to know when an entrepreneur has that moment where they say, this is a business idea, right? Where did that come from in your mind? Like, packaging, like, how did that become a business? I always want to know.
for me personally,
Yeah.
um, what's interesting is I started out in graphic design
Okay.
and print production.
That makes
So,
sense.
I mean, that kind of makes sense. But I ended up going to work. I worked for a paper mill for 17 years.
Okay.
And while I was there, I ended up starting to work. I honestly didn't know I was going to end up in packaging.
Right.
um,
Yeah.
right? When you're 16, you're like, I want to design packaging for a living. I don't think that happens. Um, but what happened is I started working with different customers. Particularly, I had the opportunity to do a bunch of stuff with Starbucks
Oh, cool.
and do some things with Tiffany. I even got to work with them when they redesigned the pattern in their paper for only the third time in 150 years,
Wow.
which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a
And
big moment there. It's a milestone.
it was, and they were very particular. I know it's
Of
shocking.
course.
Um,
Well, no, I mean, when you have a corporate, you just said
it's
150
Tiffany.
years. Yeah.
It's their brand, right? So I started out just in paper, like thinking like for letterheads and stuff, and then evolved into more on the packaging side. And the company I worked for asked me to start their packaging division.
Cool.
So
That's a great
that's
story. I
how I
mean,
ended up starting to do it.
makes a lot more sense now. And coming from a graphic design background makes a lot of sense. Maybe like 20 plus years ago, I was I was in my 20s and I was dating myself, inventing different products and ideas. And this is before Kickstarter. And I'd come up with an idea, I'd build a product, I'd get China to manufacture a prototype, and then I'd create packaging. I'm also a graphic designer, so I would do like cardboard packaging and foil packaging and plastic packaging. There's so many different kinds of packaging, and there's just no kind of rhyme or reason behind what works and what doesn't. It's just what works for your product. How do you tell a customer or a client that this is the right packaging for their product? Like, what are the key things that you think about when choosing that?
A big thing is how are you going to sell it, right?
Hmm.
Is it going to be direct to consumer? Is it going to be on a shelf? If it's going to be on a shelf in Target, Kroger, CVS, that has a much different need, right? In terms of being able to stand out from everybody else. Think about like if I would never do this personally, but if you wanted to start, no, I'm just thinking there are some markets that are really, really crowded right now, like the
Yeah.
whole canned cocktail market, or how many different kinds of like infused sodas and stuff can you have right now?
Oh my God, there's so
And
many.
that's crazy. So whenever I recently saw somebody was like, yeah, I'm coming out with a whole new line of canned cocktails, and I literally said to them, I was like, well, it's a pretty
Why?
crowded market. Have you thought about that? But if you're going to do something that's pretty crowded, you're going to want to have something that stands out,
Stand out.
right?
Yeah.
Whether that be the package, how it's printed, or whatever. But if it's something that's direct to consumer and it's literally just going to be in an e-commerce package, you have to be thinking differently. What's the experience that you want the customer to have? But there's also things, do you want to try to, make it as small as possible? Do you want to make it
Right.
something that's as light as possible? Is it something that you want to sit on a counter and look beautiful and have a customer experience from that perspective?
And
And
of
then
course, like I'm getting Amazon packages every day, and some have packaging, some don't. Right? Some are just like manufacturer parts or whatever. And every day everyone keeps talking about how much plastic is being wasted and how much we're killing the earth with all the packaging. Right? The packaging has a packaging has a packaging inside. There's like four layers of packaging inside of a box.
right.
So this episode is how to implement sustainable packaging. So what is it, first of all? I mean, I know what sustainable packaging means, but maybe you can explain to me something that I don't already know about like the green movement. Is it have anything to do with that, or is it something else?
It's table stakes now, right? It really is as a corporation. I'm working with a large corporation right now where we're in the middle of doing a rebrand of about 170 SKUs. And when we had our
Wow.
very first meeting, with their when I was at, corporate staff in Chicago, there was a member of their ESG team in the room. So it's table stakes now as a corporation goes, is that you need to be thinking about that. But when you think about sustainable packaging, there's some real basic things that people don't really think about. The number one way to make your package sustainable, and you already brought it up, is to right size it.
Hmm.
So have it be as small as possible. Or kind of along the same lines, if you're going to be selling on Amazon, is it something that you can ship, in its own container, right?
Right.
It's in its own package. So that's the very first thing that you can do. The second thing is the package, is the substrate that you've made it in, is it recyclable?
Hmm.
Is it recycled? So yeah,
Right.
everybody talks about plastic being bad, but a lot of things, plastic is the best way to go.
Sure.
So, and there's a lot of options for recycled plastic right now. There's a lot of options for recyclable. Everybody always goes, oh, glass is so recyclable. Well, glass, it uses an amazing amount of energy and water to make it.
And it
And it
breaks.
also, it breaks. It doesn't necessarily protect the product. It's also really heavy to ship.
Yeah.
And unless you're a liquor bottle, the majority of glass that's used in the United States is manufactured offshore. It's
Wow.
manufactured in Taiwan, it's manufactured in China, or it's manufactured in Europe.
Well, you
So
mentioned
think
plastics being recycled so much, but I mean, I would say that I've seen so many news reports of the amount of recycling that doesn't actually get recycled. Maybe that's not true. I don't know, but from what I could see in news reports, of course, I can't believe everything I see, but they're saying most recycling does not get recycled for whatever reason. Is that true? And if so, then how is using plastic good?
that's actually an issue with municipalities, to be honest. And that's one of the things that's hard in the United States is that. So I'm in Seattle. I live part time in Seattle,
Okay.
part time in Florida. In Seattle, I literally can recycle anything. I can
Awesome.
compost anything. It's amazing, right? They come to you have a bin for everything.
Yep.
In Florida, you can't recycle. I mean, you can barely recycle anything,
The
right?
alligators eat it.
Not so much, right?
We wish.
And exactly. So that's one of the things, and I haven't found the answer yet,
Mhm.
but that's, I think, the biggest opportunity in the United States is to try to figure out how do we work with municipalities, how do corporations work with municipalities to figure that out. Like it's insane that I'll throw Florida under the bus. It's insane in
It's okay.
Florida that
Everybody
everybody
does.
still uses plastic. That's funny. Everybody uses plastic garbage bags, right?
Oh wow, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, or you know what I mean? Not garbage bags,
The
grocery
grocery
bags.
bags. Yeah, we don't do that
Everybody
up
uses
here. We use reusable or paper sometimes, but it's always
exactly.
reusable. Yeah,
And I'm the
it
girl who
just
always
makes sense.
has all my reusable bags in the back of my car.
Same. I
Um,
have 100
and
of
that's
them.
yeah, me too. And so it's bizarre, but that's a lot of the recycling challenge. The other thing that I find frustrating, and it's very much greenwashing, is there are items that are recyclable, but you have to take it back to a store and then it's going
Right.
somewhere else to a very specialized recycling. Somebody sent me something recently from Macy's and it came in one of those plastic envelopes and it was like recycle me, but in order to recycle me I had to
Right.
take it back to a Macy's.
So
So
do you really want to
what
do that? Do you want to take the 30-minute back and forth trip or whatnot? I totally get that. And that brings me to a point as in terms of using sustainable packaging in a store or online, how do you make it known that you're trying your best to be sustainable and in order to drive more sales? Is that kind of what you help people do, or what's the best way to do it?
There's a lot of different ways to do that. So, first of all, if I tell this to everybody all the time, if you're doing the right thing on your packaging, tell everybody. Put it
Okay.
on your website, put it on your LinkedIn, put it on the packaging. So, is your packaging recycled, right? Put it on there. If it's a paperboard or a corrugate and it's FSC certified, which stands for Forest Stewardship Council, and that means that the substrate itself comes from fibers that were responsibly sourced. That's awesome. There are a lot of pouches that I make now that have 40% post-consumer. Put that
Hmm.
on there, but let everybody know that you do that. My company we built a facility in the Dominican Republic for gathering and processing what would have been ocean-bound plastic.
Huh.
And we've partnered with Repurpose Global so that we have customers for whom they have to use plastic, but they want to offset it or maybe offset even more.
Right.
So we're able to provide them plastic offsets through Repurpose Global. If you're
Very,
doing
very
that,
cool.
tell
Yeah,
everybody,
that's
right?
super
Put it
cool.
on your package, and somebody like me or other companies like me will provide you all of the artwork, all of the information that you need. And there's other organizations that you can join too. There's we belong to something called OSC2, which there's also the Sustainable Packaging Coalition. There are other organizations that you can join as a corporation if you really want to try to do the right thing.
Awesome. And like if entrepreneurs or business owners are watching this or listening to this right now and they say, well, I want to do all that, but it sounds like it might be expensive for me to implement all of these strategies because I just have like one or two products. I'm just trying to sell them. Like if I have to do all this extra work to get recycled products and put logos and, all this stuff, like, is it going to kill my time and my budget? And that's pretty much what most people are probably worried about. So how would you argue against that?
It's not. So remember I said one of the very first things in terms of being sustainable is to right size your package.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I want to do a carton and it's for I'm working with a customer right now on a brand new filtration pitcher. And we were able to figure out that by moving that to FSC, paperboard, which is already recyclable, was going to cost 3 cents more for a box,
Oh,
big box. That's nothing.
yeah,
The other
3 cents.
thing is, the other thing is, let's say that 3 cents is a deal killer, right? Well, let's see if we can reduce the size of the box slightly because, and I don't know if you knew this or not, but half of every package cost is the substrate itself. So
Right,
whether it's a pouch or a box or a jar, over half of that cost, 55 or 60% of that cost is the actual substrate.
right.
So if I can reduce the cost, I mean, if I can reduce the size, I'm actually going to save you money.
Save money. Right, right. That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense now. No, I love that. And, most businesses don't even know how to get started and they're probably making a ton of mistakes. I mean, you mentioned all the things that people should be doing, but you haven't mentioned anything that people should be avoiding. So let's say, again, I was an inventor for probably a decade coming out with so many products. I probably killed so many rules. I probably broke so many rules that you have been saying that I should be doing, but let's help people avoid that. What would you say the top 2 or 3 mistakes people are making when they're coming up with packaging for their products?
Make sure that you've left yourself enough time. That's honestly where I see big mistakes, where they're forced to go with a certain kind of package because they didn't think about it early on in the process.
Hmm.
That applies to having a creative experience or standing out on shelf or a sustainable experience. I would say that that's probably the biggest mistake that I see.
Okay. So
And
like
then the other,
prepare better.
yeah, just give yourself enough time. I'll use liquor bottles as a really good example. You can have a custom bottle that literally adds no cost to your unit cost. You're just going to have to pay a mold fee if you leave enough time.
Hmm.
And then the cost of that bottle is going to be the exact same as any other bottle that size for the life of your product. You
Wow.
just needed to leave enough time to do that.
Right.
And what happens is people think about it too late in the process and they're like, oh, I
Right.
want a custom bottle. I was like, you didn't leave enough time to make a custom tool.
Got it.
So that would be an example. And then I think the other thing is that if you are going to make a decision and you want to make sustainable packaging, just work with an expert like me and make sure that you really understand the whole platform, because there are a lot of people who instantly go, oh, glass is the best. That's just, and I was like, have you looked at all the considerations? Because for you, it might be, but really look at all the considerations. Look at where it's made. Look at the overall footprint of shipping from Taiwan when you could have had something that was made here. Or
Yeah, maybe
think
it's not.
about,
Maybe it's not even glass or plastic. Maybe it's cardboard, and you can flatten that and expand it, and then it's even cheaper that
yep,
way, right? And people are using
exactly.
cardboard a lot. I love cardboard products. So this is a great segue to tell everyone what you do and how they can get a hold of you.
Oh, that's great. So I'm the president of the enterprise division for a company called AE Global, and we're headquartered in Florida. That's why I live here part-time. And we do full start to finish custom solutions, everything from structural and graphic design all the way through production and even prototyping of
Wow.
almost any kind of packaging you can think of, any substrate.
Oof.
And the best way to find me is on LinkedIn, Elizabeth Corbett.
Awesome. And everybody has to check out aegpkg.com. That's aegpkg.com to learn more about the
Perfect.
company. Thanks so much, Elizabeth. Hope you guys learned something, and we'll see you in the next episode.